I learned about this in the most unusual way. It happened at the start of our annual men's fishing weekend. The guys, Scott, Stan, Roger, and I, go to the lake for a 3-day fishing trip, and our wives have a girls' weekend away. We have known each other for many years, and Roger and Mary are our closest friends. Stan Fortunato is Roger's nephew and several years younger than us, but we have accepted him into our circle of friends. Over time, he became one of my best employees. When Laura and I got married, we were still high school graduates, but I was goal-oriented and hardworking. Shortly after graduating from high school, I started a small pool service business, and within 2 years, it had grown to serve over 100 homes with 4 employees. The business continued to thrive, and 20 years later, I serve over 1,500 homes with a team of 30 dedicated employees, including the invaluable Stan, who has proven to be a wonderful asset to the company. Despite having no college education or work experience, Stan's enthusiasm, hard work ethic, and excellent team relationships made him an exceptional leader for our Orlando location. Recognizing his outstanding contributions, I promoted him, offering him a significant salary increase and the opportunity to become a company owner in the future. Our professional relationship developed into a true friendship, and we enjoyed working together. Over the years, I expanded the company's business from Tampa to Orlando, making it the leading pool service company in Central Florida. Since the vast majority of homes have swimming pools that require constant care and maintenance, our services are in great demand. Revenues and profits increased sharply, strengthening the company's position in the market. As the business grew, the importance of financial management became apparent. I relied on Howard, a trusted and experienced family member who was a retired tax accountant and had a wealth of financial knowledge. On his advice, I used all my home equity to expand my business when mortgage rates were extremely low. My confidence in Howard is a testament to his experience and dedication. He and his attorney wife played a significant role in our success by providing invaluable advice and guidance that proved instrumental in helping the company thrive. Howard's wife, Beth, a corporate lawyer, suggested putting the company into a trust to protect the assets from liabilities and possible future lawsuits. I followed her advice and became my sole confidant. Ah yes, the joys of married life and the pursuit of a dream home. My wife Laura and her friends absolutely love our new home. Picture this: a chic, upscale neighborhood with a huge pool, a spacious patio with a charming Hawaiian bar, and a grilling area that would make any barbecue lover's mouth water. Let's not forget about the luxurious amenities that Laura insisted on. She knows how to get her way, and I can never refuse her persuasive charm. You see, these houses in our posh neighborhood are going up in price faster than a shooting star. So, naturally, I succumbed to Laura's every whim, knowing full well that when the time came to sell, we would be the winner. Love has the ability to force us to do things that we would not even think about, but it's all for the good, isn't it? Well, the day has come. Laura and her friends arrived at our luxurious abode for a weekend of complete solitude. When they arrived, I received strict instructions not to interfere with their pranks. Their task is to have a blast without us husbands. And I happily complied. I was more than ready to escape the clutches of girl talk and weekend gossip. With fishing rods in hand and a heart full of freedom, I rushed there faster than a pack of puppies. The fishing trip felt like heaven after spending weeks working hard to manage my growing company. The thought of catching more fish and drinking something cold with the guys was pure heaven. Leaving the ladies alone with their wine and secrets, I couldn't help but think how lucky I was to have Laura and her gang of schemers in my life. Sure, they drive us husbands crazy sometimes, but deep down, we know they are the spice that spices up our ordinary days. I couldn't help but smile as I drove to Roger's house, knowing the weekend adventure was just beginning. We carefully planned our trip to the lake, intending to leave at 6 o'clock in the evening and reach our destination by 9 o'clock. The 3-day outing promised to be exciting, filled with fishing and friendly communication. As I was getting ready to get into the car, I suddenly realized that I had forgotten my special bait, which I had been working hard on in the workshop. For me, fishing is not just a hobby, but a passion. I take pride in creating my lures and tackle with the belief that the right tackle can be the key to a successful catch. This lure I've been working on for the past week has a special meaning to me. It's a labor of love, a custom-made piece designed to attract the biggest fish and give me pleasure on the water. Knowing how important it is to have the perfect bait, I couldn't imagine going on a trip without it. So I informed my fishing buddies that I needed to pick up my bait before we set off on our trip. They chuckled good-naturedly, naturally understanding my dedication to the sport. At 5 in the evening, I jumped in the car, drove the 7 minutes home, parked behind all the women's cars, walked to the side door, and quietly went down to the workshop, not wanting to disturb the girls or get reprimanded for coming home early. Trying not to make any noise, I walked up to the bench and noticed that I could hear women talking. I remember I laughed, realizing that they were already drunk, as they were giggling and having fun. They were sitting in the shade next to the Hawaiian hut on the side of my house. The workbench was right under the window and close enough to hear their conversation. I'm not a big eavesdropper and I don't really care about their conversation, but when I heard my wife talking about me in bed, my attention perked up. I don't know why, but I thought I'd record this part of the conversation and tease her when I got back. So I turned on the voice recorder app on my iPhone. The next few minutes ruined my fishing and turned my world upside down. Apparently, I found myself in the midst of hot gossip. The ladies certainly didn't hold back, and I couldn't help but laugh at their frankness. They seemed to be discussing not-so-private details about their personal lives, and things were getting very spicy. Laura, laughing mischievously, did not hesitate to talk about her relationship with her husband, with me. I heard her telling the girls how great I was with my tongue and how I had never screwed up after all these years. I couldn't help but think, well, there you go, Laura, boasting about my hubby. She continued, but what they say is true. After many years of marriage, everything may not be as stormy as before, but hey, it happens to the best of us. But then, as if out of nowhere, one of the girls asked the million-dollar question. So that's why you were doing this with Stan? I perked up my ears, leaning in to see how Laura would react to this stunning news. The girls were in detective mode, trying to piece together the puzzle of Laura's recent antics. Judging by Laura's frankness, I felt that the conversation was about to take an interesting turn. While waiting for Laura's answer, tension and intrigue hung in the air. Crap! My heart skipped a beat, and I couldn't believe what I had just heard. Did I hear correctly? Did Laura just say that she had something with Stan? Our Stan? Panic and disbelief washed over me like a tidal wave, and I leaned even closer, desperately trying to catch every word. My mind raced, trying to process this shocking revelation. Stan, who I trusted and considered a friend, was involved in something with my wife. It felt like the ground was crumbling under my feet, and I struggled to keep my emotions under control. Every word they uttered was like a dagger to my heart. The giggles and laughter that once brought joy now sounded like a cruel symphony of betrayal. My hands were shaking as I clutched the phone, my heart was pounding wildly in my chest, and tears were threatening to flow from my eyes. As I continued to eavesdrop on this heartbreaking conversation, I felt like a helpless bystander in my own life. The shock and pain were too strong, and I desperately wished that I could rewind time and erase these words from my life. At that moment, the truth hit me like a brick. The trust I had placed in Laura and Stan shattered into a million pieces. I felt lost, betrayed, and completely broken. The pain was unbearable, and I was both lost and devastated. After listening to the conversation, I realized that my life would never be the same. The innocence and happiness that filled our home will now be replaced by heartache and despair. No, Bob and I have a good sex life, and in this regard, he has always suited me. I love him and would never deliberately start a relationship with Stan. It just happened that way. Come on, Laura, you cheated on Bob. You can't be that happy with your marriage. No, you don't understand. My love for Bob is everything. He is not just my man, he is my home, my peace, my heart, and my safe place. And yes, it satisfies me. I love him very much. That stupid thing with Stan was just a big mistake. But you said that Stan is a wonderful lover. So we assume that you had sex with him. We don't understand this. Tell the whole story. Girls, everything I tell you should stay here. The guys will kill Stan and my husband will throw me out on the street if he finds out. I will never hurt him like that. He's so sweet, but he'll never understand. Do you promise that this will remain only between us girls? I didn't hear anything, but I assumed they were all nodding their heads in agreement. Okay, don't try to repeat any of this, but after Susan left Stan last month, he was in turmoil, in complete shock. He was going to propose to her. The day I saw him in the restaurant, we sat down together and he opened up to me and told me the whole story. Girls, he was crying. This big, strong man was crying and my heart sank. I felt so sorry for him, and I sat with him until he calmed down. He was so depressed and upset that I felt an almost maternal need to take care of him. Yeah, you're old enough to be his mother. Give us a break, Laura. You had a sexual need to take care of him, not a maternal one. Well, as it turns out, you're right, but sex didn't cross my mind at the time. Anyway, he walked me to the car and thanked me for being a good friend and allowing him to express his feelings. I just smiled and kissed him friendly. That's when the spark started. Before I could move away from him, he pulled me towards him and gave me the sexiest kiss I can remember. It had been many years since Bob had kissed me like that, and that kiss had turned my knees to jelly. Hearing her words, I felt severe pain and heaviness in my chest. I trembled, but I didn't know whether it was out of anger or fear of what she would say next. After we broke the kiss, he, without saying a word, took my hand and led me to his truck, parked a few rows down under a shady tree. Don't ask me why I let him do this. I was spellbound. So we got in the back of his car and spent the next few minutes kissing like high school sweethearts, and then he said that he always found me very sexy and fantasized about being with me. I must admit that I was stunned and flushed by his compliments, but I can't explain what I did next. Frankly, at that time, I didn't think at all about Bob or our family. As if in a trance, I unfastened his belt and pulled down his pants. I can't explain it, but I suddenly wanted to taste it. He was so grateful and said he needed it after what he had been through. Hearing this, my heart felt like it was torn in two. I cannot convey the pain that these words caused, penetrating into every cell of my body. I felt myself trembling and shaking as a sense of loss washed over me. Roger's wife, Mary, spoke next. Wow, how hot. We had no idea you had it in you. Me too. I had never thought about doing something like this before, but it just happened. Then Scott's wife, Emily, added, I think all of us girls dream about this, but it never happens. Well done. I envy you so much. Tell me what happened next. I could tell from Laura's voice that she knew she had done wrong and felt a deep sense of regret for crossing a line she shouldn't have crossed. Well, when I came to my senses and realized what I had done, I was suddenly overcome by a feeling of guilt. I knew what I did was wrong and that Bob would never understand, so I had to make sure it didn't happen again. I told Stan it was a one-time thing and we could never do anything like that again. Then I told him that Bob was his friend and he would feel betrayed by both of us if he knew about it. Stan agreed. He said it was just a moment of passion and that it would forever remain our secret. As I stood there, my heart racked with shock and pain, Laura's confession still echoing in my head, Mary's words struck the final blow to any remaining hope. They destroyed the last remnants of my illusions, and I felt completely lost and empty. Well, how did you end up in bed with Stan and turned your husband into a horny one? Hearing this question turned me into a broken person, humiliated and lost. I wanted to strangle both Stan and my cheating wife with my bare hands. Laura hesitated before recounting how Stan had approached her, seeking comfort in a moment of despair. The momentary pleasure was overshadowed by the awareness of betrayal and the depth of the pain she had caused. When she spoke, her words were tinged with sadness as she revealed the intimate details she shared with Stan. She said in a gloomy voice, "No, please don't think like that. I just made another stupid mistake. I actually screwed up and should have been smarter. Stan called me to invite me to lunch, but I declined, saying that we really shouldn't see each other alone. He said that he was depressed and needed to talk to someone, and that he felt like I was the only one who understood what he was going through. Stan said he would cook dinner for us if I came to his house for at least an hour. Then I made another colossal mistake by going to his house alone. We sat and talked, eating salads and washing them down with another glass of wine. After an hour of small talk, he said how touched he was by our last meeting. He stood next to me, about to take our dishes to the sink, and kissed me again. This time it was one of those romantic kisses that girls dream of. Long story short, we ended up in his bed for the whole day. It wasn't romantic at all, just rough sex. I knew it was wrong, but that's how it happened. And to be honest, it was the best sex I've had in years. He hasn't had sex for a long time, and he is a passionate lover. It was an amazing few hours of hot sex, but we both knew it wouldn't happen again. After I showered and got dressed, I said that this would never happen again and that he should not call me. She said that he was a wonderful man and that he should find a woman his age that he could love and that I would not jeopardize my marriage. We both agreed, and that was the last time. So you were never with him again? Just those 2 times? Anger bubbled through my veins and I clenched my fist tightly, trying to contain the storm of emotions raging within me. The revelation about Laura's one-time meeting with Stan was like a blow to the heart, and the pain intensified with every word she said. My world was falling apart and the life I knew was over. I was filled with rage, but I also felt a desperate desire to salvage what was left of our relationship. I didn't want to lose her, but I couldn't bear the weight of betrayal. My mind was racing, battling conflicting emotions. Resentment and anger mixed with feelings of helplessness, and I felt lost and vulnerable. How could she do this? How could she betray the trust between us like that? Just as I was looking for a glimmer of hope, Laura's next comment hit me like a brick. It was like she was pouring salt into an already open wound. Her words tore my heart, deepening my anger and disbelief. I know it was wrong, but as I said, it just happened. At this moment, my anger reached its climax. How can she dare to treat her actions so lightly, as if they were some kind of uncontrollable impulses? My anger flared up more and more when I heard my wife belittle her infidelities. I felt a sense of resentment, a sense of betrayal that went beyond the physical act. For the sake of a moment's pleasure, she voluntarily put our marriage at risk. The room seemed to close in around me, and I tried to find a way to cope with my anger. I wanted to scream, to break free, but I understood that this would not solve anything. The pain was all-consuming, and I felt a weight pressing on my chest. At that moment, I realized that I couldn't figure it all out right away. Then, when she spoke again, I listened carefully to find some hope for our future together. When she spoke, her voice trembled with emotion. Laura admitted that, despite feeling guilty, she could not help but remember the intense passion she shared with Stan. She said that these memories became a secret refuge for her, which she sought when making love to me. No, never again. All I have now are wonderful memories. I hate to admit it, but I use them when Bob makes love to me. I know it's wrong, but I can't get it out of my head. Now these memories are all I have left. It was a heartbreaking confession. There was a sense of sadness in Laura's words, as she tried to accept that these memories of Stan would always be a part of her, no matter how much she wanted to erase them. Emily was silent, but after Laura's confession, she spoke. Laura, I'm so jealous. I love Scott too, but I would love to try sex like you had with Stan. I don't want to say anything, but Scott is kind of small. I love it very much, but I would kill to try something different just once. I heard Mary let out a soft moan, as if the story had aroused her. Holy shit! And poor Bob doesn't know anything? Has no idea about Stan or that you fantasize about him during sex? God, this is so obscene, Laura. But you better get your head in order and forget about Stan. Bob is not a stupid person, and you can slip up and hurt him. Don't worry about Bob. I'll make sure he's taken care of. And believe me, he will never know about this. And I will never do this again, I swear. It was a mistake, and it's hard to live with that guilt. Honestly, along with the wine, What helps me is that I finally told someone the whole story. Now my future was in danger as the girls giggled and enjoyed their girl talk about me. I'm the sucker who bought the big house, paid the bills, and let my wife enjoy the luxury life without working. Spa, country club, shopping, new big house with a swimming pool for fun and a housekeeper. And all this at my expense. A mug, better known as an ignorant husband. I couldn't believe what I just heard. The shock of Laura's confession plunged me into a state of disbelief, and tears streamed down my face, revealing the depth of my pain. Time seemed to fly by in a blur as I listened to the conversation, and I could not tear myself away from the painful truth. I understood that I had to leave, distance myself from the situation, at least for a while. With a heavy heart, I took my fishing bait and the bottle of Amontillado sherry I had bought for the boys and headed back to Roger's house. The guys are waiting for my return, despite the turmoil raging inside me. The tears continued to flow as I drove, my head a whirlwind of confusion and resentment. I needed time to think it all over, to come to terms with the betrayal I had just discovered. I was not ready to meet Laura and tell her what I had learned. The pain is too strong, too overwhelming. I wanted to stick to my original plan, get away for the weekend and find solace in a place where I could be alone with my thoughts. But fate seemed to show a cruel sense of humor when I realized that I would be spending these days with Stan, the one involved in the heartbreaking affair. The prospect of being near him only added to my suffering. I didn't know what to expect, and the uncertainty weighed me down. Will I be able to contain my emotions? Will I be able to meet him face to face without suffocating him and without revealing the devastation I felt inside? As I drove back to Roger's house, the tears kept flowing and I felt a deep sense of loss and pain. The upcoming weekend hung over me like a dark cloud, and I didn't know how to deal with it. All I knew was that I needed time to heal, to find a way to reconcile my broken heart. At that moment, I felt completely alone, feeling betrayed by someone I loved and trusted. The sadness in my heart was overwhelming, and I prayed that I would someday find a way to mend the pieces of my broken soul. When I arrived, Roger was standing outside loading his Escalade. As I approached, he noticed that something was wrong and that my eyes were glazed over. I knew I wasn't ready to say anything, but when he asked what was wrong, I came up with a good answer. "Bob, what happened? You look terrible. What's the matter?" "Sorry, Roger, I'm having a migraine and just need to switch off for a while." "You are sure?" "Dude, you look bad." "Yes, I'm used to dealing with it. Just let me sit in front, I'll close my eyes, and I'm sure I'll be fine. Besides, there's no way I'm going to miss our annual trip. I need to unwind." "Sure, no problem. Why don't you go inside and relax while we finish getting ready? We'll leave in about 30 minutes. When we are ready, I will come for you." Sure enough, 30 minutes later, I was in the front seat, and my buddy Roger was taking care of me. He took his wife's blindfold and a pair of his noise-canceling headphones and handed them to me as I sat in the passenger seat with Stan and Scott in the back. Together with the blindfold, the headphones plunged me into darkness. My senses were now limited to smell, touch, and taste, which allowed me to process this unexpected situation. The guys understood my reticence and offered to help if I needed anything. I couldn't look at Stan. I just kept my eyes closed and thanked them for their understanding. For the next 3 hours, still in that dark place, I could sit quietly and contemplate the disaster I had just witnessed. I thought back through our years together, how I idolized Laura and felt blessed when she gave me Michael and Katie, our wonderful children. She said that it was just one time, that she felt guilty and would never do it again. I wanted to find a way to forgive her and forget about it, but the killer for me was her last words about how she thinks about Stan when I make love to her. As a red-blooded man, I can't imagine any guy could survive that. No. Unfortunately, I believe this confession ended our marriage. I thought about how all the good times we had together as a family might end. Tears welled up in my eyes and I wiped them away before they became noticeable. For the first time that I can remember, I felt difficult and confused. I have no answers, No idea what to do, and I must have fallen asleep because the last thing I remember is Roger shaking my shoulder, waking me up. "Dude, are you okay? How are you feeling?" he said, already near the fishing hut. I was unusually quiet for the next 2 days and used my migraine as an excuse. The guys left me alone as I was trying not to ruin Scott and Roger's trip. I continued to struggle with my feelings, looking through my life, both past and future. It was difficult, but I knew I would survive. 2 days later, still doubtful, I found myself on the path leading to the lake, alone with Stan. Roger and Scott were going to meet us at the boat dock. I followed Stan through the forest. As I followed him along the path, I heard Laura's words echoing in my head, and suddenly I was overcome with rage. On the side of the path, I noticed a large fallen branch, about the size of a baseball bat. Without thinking, I picked it up, felt the weight of the branch in my hands, looked at Stan, who was standing 20 steps in front of me, and suddenly rushed forward, lifted the heavy branch and brought it down on Stan's right shoulder. He wanted to go for the head, but at the last second, he changed direction and crushed his collarbone, causing Stan searing pain as he fell to the ground. Standing above him, I looked down at the man who was having sex with my wife. He held his shoulder and I shouted, "This is for you sleeping with my wife." Then I kicked him between the legs as hard as I could. I hit him as hard as I could and watched him arch in pain until he lost consciousness. After a few minutes, I came to my senses, carried Stan to a tree, and sat him down while he came to his senses. A few minutes later, he came to his senses. "What the hell? Listen, asshole, I know everything about you and Laura, and right now you're lucky to be still alive." "Man, I'm sorry this happened." My face turned red with rage. "Shut up! You slept with her. Period. Don't talk to me for the rest of the trip and don't say a word about this to Laura. If you tell me, I swear, you will regret it for the rest of your life. I don't know what I'll do with her, but I don't need you to ruin that either. You ruined my 20-year marriage. Don't ruin my revenge. Bob, she loves you. You can't divorce her. It's all my fault and I'm so sorry. Please just blame it on me and not her. Bob, I was hurt by Susan leaving me while Laura was by my side. It just happened and she felt guilty after I pushed her. Dude, you can't divorce her. She loves you. I hit him again. I said, shut up. At that moment, Roger and Scott saw that I was kicking him again, and they ran over and pulled me away. Bob, what are you doing? What's happened? Roger helped stand up, and we returned to the cabin for the next hour. Stan was holding his shoulder and was angry that I attacked him from behind and that the fight was unfair. I looked at him and told him to shut up, and then played the recording so everyone could hear it. When the recording ended, Roger shouted at his nephew, "You're a damn asshole. You betrayed our friend and the man who gave you a job when you were broke and gave you his trust. You had sex with one of our wives and had the audacity to come with us on this trip. And you're still angry that Bob hurt you? You should be grateful we didn't dump your ass in the middle of the lake. We don't want to see or hear about you for the rest of the trip, not a word. You should be grateful to be alive," Roger said. Scott spoke up. "You know, guys, there's another problem with this recording. You heard what my wife and Mary said and how intriguing it was to them. All our wives are delighted with Laura's infidelity and keep it a secret. I don't know about you, but I have a problem with this. And when I get back, Emily and I are going to have a serious conversation.